Hoover's Rotten Apple, Chapter 32. Far behind the ugly mug rested a body of water no deeper than 20 feet, and surrounded by enough trees to keep the fish cool. Blue had a regular chain gang set up to work there, chopping up trees to be sold as firewood come winter. Today, those prisoners were relocated to another wooded area down the road, so his and Jimmy's one-on-one walk and talk could contain no interference. Both knew what the conversation would be concerning, and both thought they knew how it would end. So, I'll begin by congratulating you on your success with the newspapers, Blue said as he and Jimmy walked along the stony ground beside the lake. You have no idea how much I appreciate you destroying them. God only knows what would happen if the public found out that those two murderers were supposed to be locked inside my prison when tragedy struck. Concealed inside Jimmy's pocket was a switchblade knife originally gifted to him by his father back in 12. The blade doubled in weight with every step Jimmy took. What can I say? If you're going to do something, might as well do it well, Warden Blue. You don't need to call me Warden. We aren't in the prison anymore. Out here, I'm just plain old Blue. Speaking of not being in prison, I'm very concerned about my workers getting out of their normal working environments. I know you've encountered some problems in the city. Norman told me all about it. You two got mugged by someone. They took your money and knocked poor old Norman halfway to hell. He needed stitches, you know. He said someone hit him with some sort of rock or a brick, and now he doesn't want to work on burning newspapers anymore because he's afraid it'll happen again. Well, I wish him a speedy recovery. Say, do you suppose it could be carjacking Jack who did it? Perhaps, but it's nothing worth looking into. Whoever committed this crime acted too recklessly to not get caught eventually. Possibly today, even. But, as I said, that case is nothing worth looking into. I brought you here today to view the whole picture. Do you know why the mug is so, how do people put it? Oh yes, cruel. Why do we guarantee each prisoner regrets ever breaking the law? Because, my dear friend, Almond City is a nightmare. People live there and don't have jobs, money, love. They are starving on the streets like worms baking on a scolding sidewalk after a storm. Some haven't experienced happiness or cleanliness in years, yet stay in Almond City because they have nowhere else to squirm off to. Except for here, that is. Do you know how easy it is to find an old handgun, step into a bank, and be sent here? A place where you are fed regularly, have a roof to sleep under, clean clothes, and good friends? Why, everyone would be acting as if we're a five-star hotel, a prison being compared to hotels. I can't have that happen, so I must make my prison worse than Almond City. Then no one will ever see this facility as a luxury. Do you know why I'm telling you this? No, sir. Again, just call me Blue. The reason why I tell you this is because you are a rare breed. You do not live in Almond City, but you do live in a home. You do have food to eat and no bank problems and fresh clothes, and yet you haven't been arrested. Because you work for me, you haven't experienced the depression like everyone else has. So, stepping into the nightmare which is Almond City for the first time could be a little shocking. That's what worries me. Have you and Norma encountered any other problems off in the city? I know it can be a harsh place, and I worry it'll be too harsh for some. A recapitulation of all the events leading to this moment flashed before Jimmy's eyes in a matter of seconds, from his encounter with the newspaper boys to his chase with Dale and more. He remembered running home shortly after departing with Dale and wishing his wife and daughter last adieu. He told them to pack their prized belongings and run away, promising that he'd regroup with them eventually. Yep, just a few everyday problems for the simple folk, he thought, but all he said was, no. You sure you didn't run into anyone important? No. Blue mustered a faint smile and slipped a hand into his pocket. Jimmy copied both the expression and gesture. Well then, I guess it's time for question 2, Blue said. His hand withdrew from the pocket. Wrapped around each finger was a brass ring with a ball bearing welded to it. Blue's brass knuckles already tore into Jimmy's cheek and shattered a tooth before Jimmy flipped open his knife. Jimmy fell to the muddy shore and tasted a warm liquid pour from his gums. Tell me where you sent Dale and Elmer, or I'll drown you! Blue screamed, dragging Jimmy into the pond. Tell me! No! Jimmy yelled before plunging into the algae-carpeted water for 30 seconds exactly. His body temperature plummeted drastically from being submerged in the shadowy pond, but the water's coolness was nothing compared to the icy hand digging into his neck. Blue's flesh was cold enough to burn. "I said tell me!" Blue screamed after resurfacing Jimmy. "Never!" Jimmy wasn't simply being held underwater anymore. Blue pushed him under and began rapidly punching at him to keep him from floating back up. "Tell me, where did Elmer and Dale run off to?" "I ain't telling you nothing," Jimmy cried out. Instead of pushing him back under, Blue gently raised him within kissing distance and whispered, "You must think this martyr complex you got is a virtue, huh? You must think you're a big man for stepping up with all your balls to be shown. Well, I might not know where Elmer or Dale is, but I will find that wife and brat of a child you got, and I will kill them, shoot them up till they're more whole than human. You'll be a big man then, won't you?" "Bullcrap." "How bad you want to test me? And it won't be your wife and the girl that I'm shooting up. She's pregnant, ain't she? That raises the kill count to 3. Call bullcrap on that one, I dare you. Do it! Call bullcrap again and I'll drag you along so you can see that I ain't bullshitting you." "Fine, Freddie Smith. I sent them to that bartender, Freddie Smith. Now please, don't hurt my family." "Oh, your family means nothing to me. But you, I plan on hurting you plenty," Blue growled, pushing Jimmy under the water. Jimmy forgot what hand he held the knife in, or if the knife was withdrawn from his pocket, or if he brought it at all. For all he knew, the knife was resting at the lake's bottom, or back at his now abandoned home. He raised his fist anyway and flailed until he hit Blue. He had no idea where or how he hit, just that it must have hurt, because Blue released him immediately afterwards. Completely free from Blue's grip, Jimmy pushed himself to the muddy shore, turned around, and watched Blue float in the waist-high water. The knife's handle was dangling from Blue's left eye socket, and he squealed worse than a slaughtered yearling. If Jimmy would have dug the blade a few inches deeper, Blue might have died instantly. Yet the amount of blood gushing from his eye gave Jimmy hope that he wouldn't survive until morning, nonetheless. Not unless he received professional medical help immediately. Blue swung his head into the sun and released a demonic howl, sending the knife flying from his skull and into the water. Jimmy was weaponless, which would have sparked apprehension if the fight hadn't already quelled. Blue stopped screaming and started moaning artistly, which soon dwindled into simple, heavy breathing. His body floated in the dead water, and his single remaining eye was fixed on the azure sky. Jimmy knew Blue wouldn't give chase. Regardless, he felt an urgent necessity to escape the lake and the prison, and most importantly, Blue, to run away to the dirt road where Dale and Elmer had first escaped to, and hitchhike just as they had until he met up with his wife and daughter. He and his family would travel far away, to California. No, California wasn't good enough. He needed to escape America altogether. His wife had family in Norway. They'd go there. If it wasn't in any way, shape, or form connected to Blue and the mug, he'd be fine. He needed to get out. He began running, with no plans on stopping for a long time. His legs moved on their own, trying their hardest not to trip over each other as they ran. He needed to get back to his family. Chapter 33. 2 scrawny urchins sporting gallon cowboy hats shot each other with finger guns. Behind them walked a muscular, unwashed farmhand and his leashed hog. The man and animal were journeying to the fenced-in plot of bare dirt, where 10 other swine stood in formation. Every pig present was beautifully plump and whistle-clean. People all around scarfed down mysterious foods of varying shape, color, and nutrients. What made Elmer's mouth water most were the butter-spotted paper bags of kettle corn everyone was enjoying. Everyone within view radiated with exaltation. "Elmer, you good?" Dale asked after noticing the hypnotic trance Elmer had fallen into within his first few steps forward. "Yeah, I'm fine," Elmer monotoned. "Just taking it all in is all. Everything smells so much better here. It smells like... God, I don't know, Bill. It smells like a fair." The aroma Elmer indulged in was a blend of livestock, manure, grain, sweet and bitter treats, and the fumes produced by thrasher machines and tractors and other mechanical farm equipment. "We ought to bottle this fair air up and sell it. That way whenever anyone has a bad day, they could just unscrew the bottle, take a whiff, and everything would be better. I bet we'd make enough money to buy every armoire from every auction ever." As a man who's spent a good portion of his time smelling this fair air, I can personally guarantee you the sales wouldn't last very long. People would buy it, then get bored with the stink by day 3. Dale muttered. Sounds to me like you're just jealous that I thought it up before you. Whatever floats your boat, Elmer. You can invest time in portable fair air some other day. Right now, we've got business to attend to. Dale tried persisting, but only made it 10 steps before realizing Elmer had fallen behind for a second time. What are you doing? He complained. Elmer had wandered to a nearby horse stable. Poking through the long barn's front window was the head of a Palomino horse. Elmer was stroking its blond coat and running his fingers through its silver forelock. Just looking at the pretty horses is all. This one likes getting pet, I think, he said with a smile. For God's sake, we've got bigger business to attend to that don't include petting oversized deer. Oh, come on. First, you're hating on fair air. Now you're hating on my little buttercup. Can't we spare at least a couple seconds to pet her? No, not now, Dale stomped. Those few seconds will come after we get our money, and that's if I'm feeling generous. Now let's go. But after seeing the genuine disappointment welling in Elmer's eyes, Dale added, Plus, there's plenty of other neat stuff to look at on the way. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Bye-bye, Buttercup. Elmer bid farewell and caught up with Dale. The two walked side by side along the gravel walkway, which meandered through the entire fairgrounds. If one walked the gravel trail's entirety, they'd see everything the fair had to offer. Dale had no plans on traveling that far. He knew exactly where he was heading. On their way, they passed the pig ring, the grandstand where the horses would race, and a wooden corn sculpture standing 8 feet tall, making it the tallest corn cob in Iowa. At least, that's what its sign read. It sure was the tallest corn cob Elmer ever laid eyes on. Surrounding the corn sculpture was a field of multiple other wooden statues resembling farm animals and oversized foods and fictitious creatures. Dale and Elmer also passed a stage with a sign reading Pie Eating Contest, 3 o'clock. Reading the word pie alone made Elmer's stomach churn. They walked past kids playing tag and a sheep barn and a city of 4-H tents. They encountered food stands, which pumped out smokestack upon smokestack of mouth-watering sweetness. It all led to a white cloth tent. Dale stopped. Here it is. At one point in time, the tent was decorated with bold vertical red stripes. The stripes had since been sun-bleached into a dull, nearly invisible pink. Burlap blankets hung along the tent walls, each with flashy designs of top hats and bunnies and words promising true magic printed all over them. They promised Elmer he'd see 2-headed pigs and that alligator baby hybrids awaited. They said magic and illusion would be experienced inside, and the show would surely not be forgotten. The most noticeable blanket, however, read that the fun wouldn't begin until 6 o'clock. My old job. You used to work here? Elmer asked, his voice edging close to laughter. At a freak show? It ain't no freak show, Dale spat, blushing worse than the sun. Those advertisements saying you'll see freaks inside are full of bull dung. We just hang them up to draw as many people inside as possible. Guess there ain't no more we to it, though. Oh, well, if there ain't no we anymore, then what are you meeting back up with your old coworkers for? I have to. Dale paused to consider the word choice. After a moment's thought, he said, Call in a favor. I've got to call in a long overdue favor. Now, do you want to stay out here or go in with me? I'll go in with you. All the oxygen in Dale's being poured out from his mouth, followed by a low, Okay, then. He pulled the front curtain open and stepped inside. Elmer wouldn't say he was disappointed with the magic tent, but he'd be lying to say it surpassed his expectations. Nothing was fun, including the items, which weren't intended to be an eye-catching magical prop to begin with. The bleachers looked impossible to sit comfortably in. The stage's paint was close to completely chipped away, and its wood looked paper-thin and ignitable by the heat of a cigar cherry. To top it all off, the stage's velvet backdrop had been torn apart and sewn back together so many times it resembled the stitched flesh of Frankenstein's monster. Dale cupped his hand over his mouth and called, Hello! To the vacant tent 3 times, the first as a shout, the second as an echo, and the third as a question. The tent remained silent for a moment longer before a female voice from behind the stage's velvet curtain yelled, Sign out front says we ain't performing right now. Come back at 6. Dale drooped and responded to the curtain. It's me, Dale. He flushed as though embarrassed by his own name. Not a single second passed before the heads of two flapper ladies popped out from the curtain's center parting. One was blonde, the other a brunette. Other than their hair, the two looked nearly identical. Both shared the narrow, freckled nose, the ebony eyelids with the dotting eyes, the perfectly arched eyebrows, and the ruddy lips. "Oh my God, it really is you!" The brunette flung open the curtain and started ardently towards Dale with swinging hips. She wore a bedazzled dress that started just below the shoulders and ended just above the knees, along with a smaller yet greatly more seductive smile. Her emotional brown eyes never left Dale's as she strutted closer and closer. For the first time since encountering the fair's billboard advertisement, Dale showed genuine glee. "I missed you so much, baby," he said. The two walked close to each other, meeting in the tense center. She didn't stop until her breasts pressed against his chest. Her eyes remained fixed on his all the while. Elmer couldn't help but feel uncomfortable as she placed her hand gently on Dale's cheek and caressed him, just as he couldn't help but feel complete sympathy when she used that hand to slap him. The sound produced when she smacked his face was indistinguishable to that of a freshly thawed meat slab splatting against a smooth cement floor. She turned around and returned to the stage. When she reunited with the blonde, she screamed to Dale, "You really think I wouldn't be mad? Look at this place, this dump. It's all your fault. And who's that cow you're hanging out with now?" "Hey, I ain't no cow. I'm dapper." "Elmer, shut it this 1 second. Listen, Rita, can you please let me explain?" Dale pleaded. Both Rita and the blonde crossed their arms. Rita questioningly glanced at the blonde, who nodded her head yes in return. "All right, you have our full attention until you don't. Start yapping." "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness or nothing along that track. Just give me what I want and I'll leave." Dale paused, allowing Rita to inquire what he sought. She didn't. She simply stood and stared with boredom plastered onto each of her features. "All I ask is for you to pay off your debts," he finished. An awkward repentance trickled through his body, as though he instead asked her to strip naked and dance. She didn't react in such a fashion, however. She instead laughed and giggled and cried, "I can't believe you! First you shatter our name by stealing from that hotel restaurant, then you leave me and Jane to run the business alone, and now you've returned not even because you care, but because you need to borrow some money we obviously don't have? Well, you owe me," Dale said, his voice wavering. Rita giggled and said, "Oh, you what? When did you ever do anything to me that I haven't already paid back, whether it be in money, labor, or tears? Sometimes I think I pay back twice what I owe you. Maybe it should be me asking you for the money." Dale rose a trembling finger to her neck and stuttered, I gave you that necklace." Rita said nothing. She stared at him blankly, awaiting an end to this clownish crusade. "Ha ha, I'm so funny. You fell for it, didn't you?" she wanted him to say before snapping his knee and leaving forever. He didn't. Instead he said, "Okay, how about I perform for you guys tonight? You know, you can have a lead magician again." "Aren't you just the egomaniac? What do you think we've been doing, waiting listlessly about for you to gallantly arrive to save the day by performing for us? No, we've moved on from you a long time ago. We've found a new guy." Before Dale asked or predicted who the new lead was, someone entered the tent and, without hesitation, shouted, "Well, ain't it the worst showman in the entire state of Iowa, or any other state for that matter?" Dale didn't need to see who entered the tent. He knew the man just by his smug tone of voice and the roaring volume he spoke at. "Brady Winston," Dale hissed to nobody but himself. Brady wobbled past Dale and climbed on stage. Under his weight, the stage's boards strained enough to produce an unignorable ship-like groan. "You ladies want to try some kettle corn? It's explosive," he said, holding the bag first to Rita's face. When she shook her head and stepped away, he waved the bag to Jane, who declined as well. "More for me, I suppose," he said, shoveling a handful into his mouth. "Could you lend me some?" Elmer asked. His request was ignored by all. "You guys are working for Brady Winston?" Dale said, not believing the words he spoke. "But he ain't even a good magician. He's just a horny sumbitch who thinks performing cheap parlor tricks will impress the ladies." "But the only ladies I bet he's ever able to impress are the ones who are breastfeeding all 18 of their children down by the pigsty," Elmer added. He and Dale both exchanged knee slaps and bawled with laughter. "Oh, ain't that a good one?" Dale hooted. Tell me, Brady, you still hitting on Rita, or have you discovered that she got standards yet? He and Elmer erupted in another laughing fit. Brady gasped with enough fervor to jiggle his chin flap. I refuse to be made fun of like this. Stagehands, take them away. The stage's back curtain soon parted completely, revealing two burly men clad in plaid. The stagehands alighted the stage and seized Dale and Elmer by the arms. As he was being dragged away, Dale began to beg, No, 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 we were just picking. Come on, Rita, you can't enjoy working for this clown. I'm better. I'm the better magician and the better lover. Please help me out of this mess just one time. It's for the greater good. By the time his rant was completed, the stagehands threw him and Elmer outside the tent. I'm still not 100% sure what your plan was to do there, Dale, Elmer said, brushing the dirt off his back, but I reckon it didn't turn out as planned at all. Who was that scumbag anyhow? Brady Winston. He's been fixing on stealing my gal since I first met her. Now, I guess he finally has. Whatever, let's go, Dale said. There's got to be better ways to make money at the fair. Chapter 34. Brady Winston was so infuriated, he destroyed the hacksaw used to cut Rita in half during the opening trick. Luckily, they had another hacksaw to use. They possessed only one coffin of doom, however, so when Brady targeted that, Rita intervened. She slid between him and the coffin and yelled, No, there ain't no reason why Dale's stupid friend's stupid opinions regarding your hefty size should mean this much to you. It wasn't just his stupid friends, Dale's picking on me too. And you've got even less reason to care about Dale. Brady extruded a colossal sigh, forcing Rita to momentarily stop breathing as his odious dragon's breath passed. Yeah, I guess you're right. Some bitch means nothing to me anyhow. He plopped down on the doom coffin and shoveled a fistful of kettle corn into his mouth. Thank you, girls, he said before swallowing. I have no idea what I'd do without you two. His jaw suddenly unhinged, allowing some slobbery kettle corn to dribble down his chin. Wait a second. The only reason why I got you two was 'cause Dale had to leave. He got himself arrested. And if he was arrested not too long ago, how come he's out wandering around right now as free as a bald eagle? Could they have escaped? I do recall skimming over something in the paper regarding two men on the run doing no good. That would explain his friend. He rose to his feet and paced back and forth in silence for a full minute. It was the longest Rita ever saw him in constant motion without becoming winded. Without stopping, he said, Listen here, Rita. I've got a very special friend. He's a sheriff down in Millville. I need you to find the nearest phone booth and give him a ring. Tell him to get on up here. Tell him Brady Winston got a special task for him. What do you need him to do? Rita asked. Brady leaned in and whispered into Rita's ear all the information she needed. I found a few outlaws. Palmer should know who I'm talking about. Chapter 35. As he stomped down the gravel walkway alongside Elmer, Dale reprobated, For the past hour, all we've been doing is wandering around looking at pigs, looking at people eating like pigs, sweating like pigs, smelling like pigs. This entire place is one big pigsty. Damn, I hate the fair. Whoa, whoa, whoa! The only time you should use profanity when regarding the fair is when saying you're having a damn good time. And you're forgetting all the neat stuff we saw that can't be compared to pigs in any way whatsoever, Elmer countered. We didn't come here to see neat stuff, Elmer. We came here to make money so we can buy our pajamas before those rich fuckers can. A passing by mother eyeballed Dale and Elmer with cupped hands over her boy's ears. Dale silenced himself until she fell from view. Sorry for my friend's profanity, ma'am, Elmer called, and to Dale he lipped, I told you. It was already too late. The mother was long gone down the gravel path, warning her son never to repeat the nasty words Dale said. Dale, don't you think you're being a little overdramatic about this? I mean, yeah, sure, your gal pal left for another guy, but Rita has nothing to do with this, and Rita may have left me, but not for Brady Winston. All I want is to catch Hobo Crow before it's too late. Okay, then, let's think here. How else can we make money around the fair? Elmer was stroking his chin and scanning his surroundings. Dale pondered as well, although he found himself focusing entirely on any designated plan impossible. He'd start with the shadow of an idea, but before any significant progress was made, his mind invariably retreated to an imaginary scene of Rita and Brady performing magic shows together. Just before hope dissipated entirely, Dale and Elmer were alerted by a microphonic hum, followed by the august rhythmic speaking of a radio spokesman. "Alrighty, folks, just one more contestant and we'll be on our way. One more contestant and the Grandma Murphy's 7th annual Pie Chowdown will be ready to begin." Right beside the gravel walkway was an elevated wooden stage. Sitting on the stage were 2 tables, one chock full of blueberry pies and the other lined with contestants. Swimming around the stage was an audience of 50 or more spectators. The announcer continued, "Are you hungry? Do you like pie? Can you eat a whole field's worth of food and still ask for more? Then step right up to the Grandma Murphy's 7th annual Pie Chowdown. One more contestant." Elmer was looking at Dale with an air of vehement rejoice. "Please, pretty please for me, don't say you got a plan that's better than me going up there as a final contestant," he begged, making sure not to open his mouth too wide or he might drool. "Fortunately, I don't. Now get up there, quick, before someone else beats you to it." Dale could have stopped speaking at "don't," because that's all Elmer needed to hear before launching towards the stage. "And we've got a 5th and final contestant, ladies and gentlemen," the announcer cheered as Elmer took a seat at the long table. The other contestants included a round kid no older than 16, with ruddy cheeks and a smile that wrapped around the entirety of his plump, jaw-shaped head. Next was a disproportionate elderly man whose toothpick arms and legs didn't belong with his beer belly and gallon jug breasts. Beside him sat a 30-year-old whose every feature was tinier than most, raising concern as to why he participated in the first place. Next was a perfectly generic farmer archetype, and lastly, Elmer. A young lady jumped on stage and dished each contestant a plate of 5 fresh, steamy pies, all while the announcer said, "Alrighty, folks, you know the rules. The first one to finish all their pies and ring the bell wins. And remember, no hands or else you're disqualified. Ready? Eat on 3. The announcer turned to the crowd, who counted down for him. 1, 2, 3! Everyone yelled and burst into a roar of laughter as all 5 men dove headfirst into their pies. Everybody laughed but Dale, who did take pleasure in watching Elmer writhe in pie, but was more concerned about him winning. One man in the crowd began chanting, "Maxwell! Maxwell! Maxwell!" Within seconds, the chant spread across the crowd faster than an eclipse's shadow crossing the world. Everybody was hooting and hollering and crying for Maxwell to eat more pie. Based on the arrogant smirk and the rate he inhaled the pies, Dale guessed the fat kid was either Maxwell or who they should have been cheering for instead. The panegyric ended dead in its tracks, and everyone hissed a sour "ooh" or "ew" when the beer-bellied grandpa fainted from being overfed. He fell right on top of Maxwell's last 2 remaining pies. Elmer finished swallowing his first pie when Dale felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned just to be twirled back around by a baton passing through his jaw. If not for the surrounding crowd to catch him, Dale would have kissed the compact dirt. "Remember me, killer?" the baton-wielding Palmer asked. "Not necessarily," Dale panted, wiping the blood from his lip. "I remember better when I'm alone, though. So please just stay put. I'll be back eventually, I promise." Palmer's face didn't so much as twitch at the wisecrack. Before taking off, Dale returned his attention to the stage for a split second and saw that not only was Elmer gobbling away at the pies with the avidity of a starved mutt, he was the only one trying. Everyone else cared more about the Dale versus Palmer dilemma. "You keep at it, Elmer. I gotta skedaddle, but I'll be back," Dale yelled as he pushed through the crowd. Once they got running along the gravel walkway, the space between Dale and Palmer diminished by the second. With every 10 or so leaps, Dale had to dodge somebody, and 95% of the time, he succeeded at doing so. When that 5% came along, it came in the form of a child of all creatures. All Dale did was blink. That momentary period of blindness was all that was required for Dale, the kid, and the kid's bag of kettle corn to sprawl across the path. Palmer was nearing too quickly for Dale to excuse or explain himself to the child. Dale instead jumped to his feet, brushed the dust from his overalls, and said, "Sorry about the kettle corn, kid," before darting away. "Go kick rocks, jerk!" the kid yelled, waving a downturned thumb at Dale's back. "I command you to stop running immediately. You're going to prison no matter what, so make it easy on yourself and stop now." The nearness of this injunction only corroborated Dale's theory that Palmer wouldn't stop to lend the poor child any support, and Dale guessed, based on the hesitancy surrounding the word prison, Palmer had no such intention as to returning him to the ugly mug. No, Palmer was instead out